In the next century, the face of the urbanized world is set to dramatically change. As the twin specters of peak oil and climate change loom over us, the structures and systems of the modern city have become entirely dependent on the existence of cheap energy. Single-family dwellings, air-conditioned office towers, and a vast network of highways and roads have come to define our cities, but the functioning of each is based entirely upon the abundance of the age of oil. In the coming years, significant changes will be needed in energy system planning and urban design in order to shift our cities towards a more sustainable path. One of the challenges facing planners, designers, politicians, and individual citizens is that there remain many issues to be resolved regarding our energy future. Will it be coal or nuclear? Solar panels or wind power? Ethanol or natural gas? While these questions have become the focus of the popular energy debate, it is increasingly being recognized that each of these energy sources will be elements of a new smart grid that will take advantage of local generation wherever possible. The key will be to decentralize the energy system, promote renewable energy projects, and engage the public in a way that empowers people to make the important decisions that will need to be made in the coming years. The goal of this film is to highlight some of the innovative new programs and developments that are occurring right now in the city of Toronto. From both the grassroots rising up to the institutional top-down, important steps are being taken of which most Torontonians are completely unaware. The focus is not just the energy technologies being used, but also the different approaches that each represents towards the common goal. Having a vision of where we want to go is essential, but the key will be in discovering how to get there. For a number of years, the adoption of renewable energy in Toronto has been a slow process. In an energy landscape dominated by a massive government-run infrastructure, a powerful systemic inertia has stifled progressive action. In this void of leadership, a fascinating new trend has arisen: the community-based solar bulk purchasing group. In 2006, the Riverdale Initiative for Solar Energy was founded by local artist and environmental activist Ron McKay in an effort to encourage homeowners to begin making positive changes to their own energy profile. At first, the small starter project took some time to get off the ground, but after the first round of installations, the program proved its viability, and similar groups in various areas of the city soon followed suit. Since then, the various community solar groups have coalesced into a collective called Our Power, which works to support the development of community solar initiatives in an ever-increasing area. To date, Our Power groups have installed photovoltaic panels on 112 homes, and solar thermal on more than 80 others. These groups have helped push the energy debate forward, encouraging everyone to pursue a more sustainable Toronto.
We had a meeting at one of the local community centers, standing room only, and people started signing up that night.
Out of that initial list, so that 160 people had the assessments done, and we had about 80 systems total were committed.
I guess the biggest stumbling block was to get people aware of the idea, aware of the technology. even the simple solar 101 of the difference between photovoltaic and solar hot water systems. You know, one generates electricity, one heats up the hot water. Just as basic as that. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, again, educating them in energy, where their energy comes from, energy production. A lot of people just flip on a switch and they're not really, it's not top of mind of how we get our energy. A lot of people just pay the bill at the end of the month.
Yeah, the beauty of what we do is that it is a community approach, that it did start off with a very grassroots movement, which I think is why there was such a big interest and uptake in it, is that people saw their neighbors, their friends, their family just doing this for the sake of interest, and doing it because it made sense, and doing it because it provided a better life, it provided a better environment for their kids to grow up in and for their families to live in and that kind of thing.
And from there, other neighborhoods started saying, let us know about that. What can we do to start our own solar campaign and get neighborhoods interested? And it just snowballed from there.
There's more to the group process than just the price. That's one of the aspects of it. But I think more importantly is the idea that you're doing it together. It's an efficient way to get information to people.
And what we're also excited about is that people who do get these systems and do install them are pretty proud of what they're doing. And so they're very eager quite often to share their story and explain the system to their neighbors and to people that are in the community. And so it does become sort of a self-generating sort of message, which is beneficial to what we're doing.
So to start with is that we had lots of people who said if we hadn't organized the project, they would never have done it because it would have been too much work for them to do individually around it. So from that point of view is that the group was an important catalyst to making it happen.
You know, we put it down onto one sheet. You know, here's the system, here's what it's going to produce for you, here's the cost, here are all the rebates, here's the installation schedule, here's what you have to do, and here's what the vendor's going to do for you. And it's actually what the vendor does for you, where people go, oh wow, that's easy. Because really all I have to do is be home when they come to look at my house, obviously sign a couple of checks to make sure they can pay for the system, and the vendor takes care of the permits, the rebates, the installation, the turning on the system, and making sure that it's working when they walk away.
So it's a turnkey operation.
That's what we insist on with these community groups, is that you're providing a turnkey option for the homeowner, so that they don't have to try and sort all these things out, that the vendor is sort of on the hook, if you will, to make sure that they're delivering a complete solution and a turnkey option for each homeowner.
So what about the bigger picture? What does a project like this say about the future of energy in Toronto? How does the community approach fit into energy system planning for the city as a whole?
The whole questions of how you take this to a much larger scale is definitely, and that's where one of the challenges you have is that while the community-based model has been good to get things going, is that it has real constraints on how quickly you can move forward and at what scale you can do it, because it has resource constraints, time constraints, and so on. And so you can't build a long-term public policy of getting hundreds of thousands of solar systems erected on a straight volunteer community-based model. But what I think you can do is you can both learn the lessons from that, and you can use elements of community-based social marketing to inform the people who are ultimately tasked with implementing the kind of public policy that's there.
The actual uptake of the technology relies heavily on a lot of the subsidies and rebates and incentives that are made available through the various levels of government right now. And if you consider the subsidies that are made available to large energy producers, coal plants, nuclear plants, and so forth, you're really just sort of redistributing those subsidies that they give to those kinds of producers. And it makes a lot more sense to do it on a local level where you don't have the transmission constraints. If you're generating the power on the roof of your house where you're consuming the power, you don't have to worry about large transmission lines going across the province and all that kind of stuff. So it lightens the load on infrastructure. And so where you would have spent a great deal on infrastructure to provide rebates and incentives to the individual homeowner, it makes a lot more sense. So it's an easy decision for governments as well, which is why it's okay to rely on those subsidies.
You know, Toronto Hydro says it's developing, it wants to expand distributed generation in the city of Toronto, that it could play a very important role in around system reliability and peak shaving. And so they would like to have something like 100 to 200 megawatts of PV installed in Toronto on both commercial rooftops and residential rooftops. There's a lot of change Toronto Hydro has to do to its actual grid in order to take advantage of distributed generation.
As I said, we've got challenges ahead, but there is also hope. The technology is there. We're going to have to do something one way or another. If you don't want nuclear, if you don't want coal, you're going to have to go for renewables. My sense now is that it might have to be a mix, but I would rather see a greater proportion of renewable energy. Solar, wind, biomass, geothermal, all that combination is going to have to be used.
But I think we're a ways away from that yet, and I think it's still a new technology, and it's still not a household conversation. It's still not understood by most people, and so I think there's still a role for us to play in terms of the education and the advice that we provide and the decision making that we provide.